Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a real gem. Avin and I, Building Minds, Builds Community podcast. We have four amazing women, mothers, that we're going to introduce to some. And some are going to, might already know them. The name of our podcast title today is Mothers That Didn't Quit. Please make sure that you like and you share this. Every time you go on social media, share it and keep sharing it. So your friends and your on Facebook and any other social media platform can keep sharing this. We want to make sure that mothers, kids, fathers, anyone that cares about family, first of all, we understand that the heartbeat of the family is the mother. When the mother's not happy or the wife's not happy, things are not right. And we got to do what, Avin? We got to get it back right.
Yeah.
As we like to say, got to get it back right. So we're going to go ahead and start with Miss Shunnika Gamble.
Greetings. Thank you for having me. I'm the mother of two young ladies. My career background consists of public relations. I'm honored to be here, and I look forward to future events with this podcast. And I can't think of anything else other than thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining. Miss Felicia Walton.
Good evening or good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be a part of this panel. I'm the mother of one 27-year-old airman, and I currently hold the position as principal at the Onslow County Learning Center, which is the alternative school for Onslow County Schools.
Thank you, Miss Walton. We have Miss Alicia Myles.
Hi, greetings, everyone. I am Alicia Myles, as he stated. I am the mother of a 16-year-old boy, born 26 weeks gestation. He is my miracle child, and I love him dearly. And I love being a part of this panel. And my career right now, what am I doing? I actually have a full and a part-time job, and I'm a contractor to both of them. One is a financial analyst, the other one is an energy specialist. So I'm enjoying both jobs, and I'm hoping that it pays for his college that's coming up soon.
Thank you, Miss Myles. And then we have Miss Melissa Murphy.
Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to say thank you so much for allowing this platform to be available to us and acknowledging us women for the strength that we have in raising children. I would like to honor the queens that are also here on this panel. Big ups to you guys, ladies. Thank you. Thank you. But yes, I am a mother of four. I have one that successfully graduated college. I have one that's another one that is in college currently on a full ride scholarship for track at Rutgers. And then I have two minor children here with me. And so I am by way of New Jersey here in North Carolina. So, but yeah, so I would like to say, it definitely, it's not for the weak. Definitely not for the weak. But yes, I was blessed with four beautiful children, and I'm thankful for the path that we have taken. And I'm a travel nurse, so that's here. So travel nursing is my thing. Serving people is my game of passion. And I also have a ministry outside of nursing. So it's called Melissa Murphy Ministries International, where we serve communities, do outreach programs, and also do some mission trips to Africa. So that's me.
Outstanding.
Oh yeah. So hey, Audience, I told you we got some powerful, amazing women on here today.
I feel that TNT. I feel
Hey.
that explosion.
Yes, more powerful women. So, Miss Alicia Myles,
Yes.
was your idea of being a mother shaped by your mother?
So that's a tricky question. If I must be honest, I think it was more shaped by my grandmother than my mother.
Uh-oh. Who is she?
Annie Ruth Myles.
Annie Ruth Myles.
Annie Ruth Myles, James, Upchurch, whatever you want to call her. She was an amazing woman who raised the grandkids. You know, every summer we were there with her. I lived with her for a few years, and you know, she shaped, molded me to the person that I am today. Basically, my mom, you know, was there. My mom was a young mom. I'll tell you that much. And as a young mom, she grew up in Alabama, and then she came to Jersey, and then that's when she lost her mind.
Wait a minute, because she came to New Jersey? Oh no. That's some shade right there.
Well, you know, you go to Jersey from Alabama, that's a switch. That's
Yes, it is.
that you're not even used to. And, you know, I can just tell you that my mom and I have grown together because she lives here with me and has lived with me since 2010. And we've kind of gotten to know each other better. You know, growing up in a household with 3 women, it was a little different, but you know, we got it now. But the person that really molded me, made me that very strong person was my grandmother and my mother. She was there too. But I can't take away what my mom did, but yes.
I think grandmoms always establish the roots, you know, as they always say, it's for a praying, if it wasn't for a praying grandmother, you know, because I can tell you, mine was praying for a long time for me. No.
I tell you, grandmother was a strong grandmother. She wasn't necessarily a praying grandmother, but she was a
I'm talking about my grandmama.
She was a Medea. Was she a Medea?
Yes.
Yes.
She ain't hitting that building until they get a smoking section, right? I know that's right.
But yeah.
Yeah, my grandmother raised me too as well. I should say I was up under her a lot, learned a lot of stuff. And I think that's where with the generations have changed, because grandmoms aren't starting at the older age. Like they're starting at like 30 years old. You got grandmas. You know what I'm saying? You don't have no establishment, no roots, no values you can pass on to your kids other than, mama, can you watch my kids so I can go to the club? No. Grandmas back then be like, listen, you lay down, you had that baby, you gonna watch that baby.
Exactly.
Even to the point where they're like, oh, you ain't going out until after you stop stinking after you had that baby. You know, they say when you after you had a baby, you like 3 months so you can go outside. Yes. So.
All right. Miss Gamble.
Yes, sir.
Was your idea of being a mother shaped by your mother?
Yes, it was. I do agree that my grandmother did play a major role in it, via being a distance from us, but a lot of her nurturing, her input as far as what an ideal mother should be like according to her traditions played a major role. And I speak on that being that, you know, back in her time frame, you know, mothers, they did what they had to do. And some mothers now, as they were speaking on the fact that, you know, mothers now are younger, the grandmothers are younger, the mothers are younger, and they all are trying to do the same exact thing, still trying to go out together. I mean, not together, but they're still trying to live their lives. And then the children come and it's like, okay, well, who's going to make the decision of taking care of these children? But I speak on the fact that my grandmother, because like, well, when I speak on my grandmother, I think of the traditional ways from her background of, you learn how to take care of your children by doing homemade remedies, learning how to improvise with what you have. When you can't go and do what you want, you use family, you seek family. And back then, you know, if you had a large family, my grandmother had what, 9, 10 children, a single mother. It was an inspiration because when she couldn't go out and purchase things, she learned how to sew. So it was basically teaching me, well, you know, sometimes you can't go and do, because I also I grew up with mom and dad, but eventually at some point down the line, I ended up with a single parent mother who also that cycle. But I also had to learn that, you know, every time that you want to do this, you can't do, but you got to learn how to improvise. Like I was stating, my grandmother taught them how to sew, taught them it was vital that you learn how to cook. But even though my mother was trying to tell me that I needed to learn how to cook, I was like, I'm not taking care of nobody's man. I ain't taking care of no children. I'm gonna be doing this and doing that. Cooking, yeah, I'll learn it, but I always wanted to be that modern young lady, go out and eat all the time. But you always had to have that money to do what you want to do. And you know, so it goes back to, yeah, my mother played a role, but she taught me as well as my grandmother. So I say both of them. But 99%, yes, my mother. My mother was there when I had the transition of being that married woman and going into being that single mother, but also reminding me that in spite of, and not only the fact that you are now a single mother, you're an educated mother, you didn't think that this would happen because you thought society was going to be this way, marriage was going to be this way, and it didn't fall that way. But you go back and you sit and you realize that in spite of, you still an inspiration, and you think about where you came from, that you still can survive, and you can still make it, and you just think back of, you don't have the money to go do this, but I was one of those mothers. None of my grandmother's children, none of her daughters breastfed. My grandmother breastfed her children. A lot of them were like, oh, well, I'm going to go out here and utilize the formula because it's cheaper. You know, they were about their shape, or they was about this. But I followed that tradition, and I was the one that followed grandma. You know, my mother didn't do it. She's like, no, you know, so she was more modern. I still had the modern, but at the same time, yeah, my mother, she played it. She was that inspiration. But again, I acknowledge my grandmother as well, because some of the things that my mother chose not to do, I learned because my grandmother was there, and just based on how she brought my mother them up, I followed that step, and I was the first one, even though her children, the first one, even the first grandchild to follow behind her with certain things. So it's like, oh, you're doing that. But it followed down with one of my cousins finally doing it. She unfortunately became a single mother. And she was like, well, I used to see you. And I was like, what in the world are you doing, when I was doing it with my children? And she said, well, I'm going to do that. So I give that to my grandmother, because my mother was like, no. But yeah, she's both of them 50-50 for me. So.
Okay. Miss Walton,
Yes.
it's your mother.
My mother, and I'm still blessed to have her at the age of 79, and still is an extraordinary woman. She raised 3 kids as a single mom. And to this day, I still stand at awe of how she made things happen and made ends meet. Now, I must say, I was very close, and I still am very close to my mother. I speak with her every day. Every day I call her. But I learned, when I was a teenager, I would see her struggles, and I decided that I didn't want any kids, is what I said, because she struggled and she never complained. Now, of course, I had one, and she's a blessing, and I don't regret from having it, but I only had one. But I'm in a school with hundreds of them that are mine. So, but my mother, to this day, is still an inspiration in my life. You know, she gave me a strong biblical background, because when things, I'm at a crossroad as to what to do or how to do, one of the main lessons that she would drill in us is, you always treat people the way you want to be treated, and you just won't go wrong. And I even tell my teachers that, if that child is in your class, you treat that child the way you would want someone to treat your child. You just can't go wrong when you do that. So I'm very blessed to still have her. My mother was not educated. She had her high school diploma, so she was very big on education. And so she ensured that, we knew that. And even though she might not have had the intellect to help us, I mean, she had enough intellect that you're going to get it done, and she'd halfway look at it to make sure it was halfway right. So I can't say enough about my mother, because I love her dearly. And I tell everybody, if it wasn't for her, there would be no me. It just wouldn't.
Yeah, there's a common theme, amongst everyone, whether it's a grandmother or a mother, in direct correlation to where you pulled your values from. But the constant is where you pulled that inspiration, that know-how, that determination and guidance was from a strong woman. You know what I mean? Whether you came from a 2-parent household with mom and dad in there, the woman is what instilled those characteristics in you. And that is, in biblical terms, obviously, man is the head of the household, but the woman is the pillar, the foundation that holds it together. And without that, I can say for a fact, if I was raised by my father, by my mother, I don't think I would be the same person I am right now, just because of how God created y'all and what he put in y'all, that is that responsibility of nurturing and bringing up the next generation. And I think that's incredible that each and every one of you have a strong mother figure, grandmother figure that embody that and push that down to y'all.
Miss Melissa.
Yes, sir.
So was your idea shaped by your mother or a grandmother or maybe an aunt?
Nope, more so my mother, my
Okay.
grandmother. My grandmother first, and then after a certain point in my life, then it was both my mother and my grandmother. So as I was saying earlier, I was raised pretty much by my grandmother. My mom worked. I was always under my grandmother. I'm the only granddaughter. So basically, I feel like what she had, she was passing down, to her lineage, Faith definitely has always been a family foundation. So anytime, times will get rough or you think you couldn't do it, she always had this one thing, this one saying, or we just won't pray about it, or, it always works out. It works out. It always does, I've always seen her, like, from the time she's got stories to tell, like she's been involved in everybody's life. She got, like I said, plenty to say about me. I was there when you was this. So she is the one that, as far as like values, yes, faith, yes, even cooking, I'm telling you, you ain't learned how to cook unless you've been up under your grandmama. So, learn how to make gravy from scratch. You better learn how to make that gravy from scratch than everybody in the stove. Biscuits, but family, even the values of families important, getting together on the holidays, things like that. She has been that main piece. So that's why family is also as well as important to me. And to go back to what you were saying, Mr. Hinton, I was always taught that the women are the neck that turn the head. So that's how we.
What's that?
The women are the neck that turn the head.
Man.
I'm still in that one. I'm still in that one.
Man, that's good.
So, and that's the truth. So if the neck ain't right, then the head ain't right.
Look at Shunnika and Alicia. Oh man.
Oh my.
That was good.
I'm still in that one.
I never heard that.
It makes sense though.
I agree with
Of
that.
course.
In context, the man is the head of the household, but the woman is the neck that turns the head. The head don't move
That's
without
right.
the neck.
All
the
day.
the head is supported by the neck. You know what I mean?
And look, but look, the women, look, hey, they already understand it or heard it. Like we lived it, so we know it. We know it.
Yeah.
Oh man. That is
But,
great.
That was a good one. I'm stealing that.
So she always said, like, do better than what she did. Like, my grandmother never got a chance to finish high school. You know, she comes from a big family, so she had to drop out of high school, get a job. And it's not even just that. It was because back in those days, coming from a big family, they didn't have no finances, you know, to go to school looking nice. And my grandma, you know, you can't be walking out that door looking any old thing, you know. So, you know, down to lunch, you know, food for lunch and stuff like that. So she sacrificed a lot. So learning sacrifice from her as well. But yeah, so that's the values I taught my kids. You know, whatever you see me at a point in life, you know, do better. And I'm always showing them, hey, doesn't matter what age I'm at, I'm doing better. I went back to school, or I'm doing this, so can you. You know, even we was competing at a point in time with grades. I got A's and B's. What you got? So, yeah.
What was the most difficult adversity you've dealt with as a mother, Miss Alicia? What was the most difficult adversity you've dealt with as a mother?
You muted, ma'am.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
My son was born 26 weeks gestation. I was in the hospital with him for 56 days before I had him. So that right there put a lot on me. I didn't know what the future held for me. I didn't know what kind of mother I was going to be, or, you know, how my son would kind of fan out being born so early. But by the grace of God, he came home 2 months and 12 days later. He came home with a heart monitor. And from that day that he came home, that adversity that I thought I was going to feel being a young mom, and well, not even a young mom, an old mom, because I had him at 5. I didn't know, you know, I didn't know the pleasure and how well I would sink into being a mom. And then at 2, when he wasn't speaking, he wasn't saying any words. I didn't know what to do, but I just reached out to different people, different groups, found different things to get him in. And now he pronounces things better than I do.
Yes.
He has the Rain Man memory, and he's doing well. So the adversity of being a mom to a premature baby was one that I didn't know how it was going to end out. But he's 16, doing well. And that, like you said, Melissa, A's and B's, we talk about it all the time. I told him before, I said, yes, I have my master's. I want you to have a doctor's. I want you to get more than what I have. And we talk about it all the time. And he's one of those smart kids that knows he's smart, and he doesn't do the extra that I want him to do. He just does the basic. He's like, I got an 89. I'm all right. If you had studied just 1 hour more, you would have got a 91. So those are things we deal with as moms, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Yeah.
Amen.
Blessing.
Miss Felicia Walton, what adversity? What's the most difficult adversity you've dealt with as a mother?
I want to say that I'm going through it probably right about now, but I was a stern mother, and because I wanted him to be safe, you know, I wanted him to be safe. So I don't apologize for that. You know, right now, like I said, I'm going through something. I'm not really at a point where I would like to talk about it. All I would like to say is that even in the midst of this right now, I am staying prayerful. Amen. And I still love, and I'm still encouraged. But you know, growing up, he didn't give me too much trouble. He didn't give me, and he was an only child, so he didn't give me too much trouble. You know, when he was being born, I remember I had never flown before, and I was having complications to the point that they had to fly me for the first time in a helicopter. And so that was a little frightful. And at the time, there wasn't cell phones, and my husband at the time was at work, and he didn't know that all this was happening. And so I was being placed on that helicopter by myself. Well, I say by myself, that's a lie, me and God. And
There we go.
and I got there, and they were concerned and was preparing me for a lot of complications. And when he was born, there was none, like none. So I'm very grateful and blessed, and I just pull back on the relationship I have with God and how He has taken me through, and I rely on that to this day. So for that, I don't have any complaints, and I just take one day at a time.
All right.
Amen. Miss Shunnika, what's the most difficult adversity you've dealt with as a mother?
Oh, wow. Lord Jesus, help me. Just the reality of being a mother, because I take it, well, I think I'll just say being a single mother overall, and working with other people and working in society, and as I don't remember who said Jersey, is it
Miss Melissa?
Alicia?
Miss Melissa.
Miss
Well,
Powell.
actually, Miss Melissa
Powell
and
said,
Miss Alicia.
okay, well, Melissa had like a defense about why you're talking about Jersey, but I'm gonna just be honest, like with Melissa, when I personally left from the South and moved up towards the North, it was a transition for me. So I can understand what Miss Myles was saying about her mother just going on a rampage from, it's the reality of the transition. And it was a shock for me because the upbringing was totally the opposite. And being up North and seeing what was permitted or allowed for the children, or just the atmosphere was just totally different. It was a shock for me. And then working in the school system at that time and hearing how children were, instead of learning, they were educating the teachers about what was going on in their household, and young kids, kindergartners telling the teachers that they know how to pimp little girls. And I'm like, what the world? My eldest child was young, and I had to get at that time I was married, but it was a shock for me because it was the city. And then going into the high schools, I'm looking at young girls carrying their children or carrying little kids to school with them. And I'm like, why are these kids walking? Maybe they're taking them to the daycare or something, but you don't see no daycare in the atmosphere or that school zone or that neighborhood. And they're taking them into school. So for me, I'm like, why are they taking their kids to school? Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the focus of keeping the students in school to continue to educate them. But then, with life, with every decision that we make, anything with life, you got pros and cons. But me not understanding and not knowing, again, coming from the South and going to the city, it was like, what in the world? But they were actually taking their children to daycare, and they were going to school as well. And the daycare was within the school. And lo and behold, you have the health department in the school. And I'm like, what in the world? So everything was there and it was accessible. But I'm like, my children are going to be homeschooled. That was just my thing, because it was like, and a lot of that had to do with because if you didn't have a parent that was really on their grind and really in tune with what was going on with their children, or didn't have that report, or because of the lifestyles that was going, because of lifestyles, because of life. And, a lot of children up north, and it's like, it has trickled down and it's everywhere, but it's just for me, in reference to the question, the parents not knowing what was going on, for example, like in the school health department, parents signing stuff, but if you don't really understand what you're signing, you're giving other individuals authority to do things with your children, or permission to tell your child to go here and go there. And if it's something against your belief or your values, we have an issue. And for me, it was like, So I was really like, no, my children are not going to be going to public schools. They will be homeschooled. And that was really where I was with that. And because of that experience, and some people can say I was traumatized, perhaps, but it changed my mindset when I ended up becoming, well, not even ended up, I was married at that time, but I was really, really gung-ho about, look, okay, mommy has her education, but mommy's working out here in the real world with a different environment, has different values and views. So with that being said, I'm going to teach you the educated terminology, and I'm going to teach you the street terminology. So when you're out there and mommy ain't around, you on your P's and Q's, you know what they're talking about. I think about with my eldest child, I would always teach her. Like I said, I taught them the book knowledge and the street knowledge, the street terminology, and it was an experience where my ex at the time, or my husband at the time, didn't agree with it, and I said, "Oh, okay, well." It's too bad, because I'm gonna educate her, because I'm not gonna always be around. And you're talking about putting in daycare. I need her to be able to communicate with me. I need them to be able to tell me, yay, this, and that, and not ever feel afraid to come to me. But in reference to the experience I was just referring to, I had educated her on her private part. And I said, okay, in the street, they may say coochie, poo nanny, but this is your vagina. And we were in the store one day, and when you put children in the carts and the guys have to strap them in, dad was strapping her in, and she was like, don't touch my vagina, don't so he was like, oh my God, like, really? So he was just furious. And I was like, yeah. So, but the reality was, he wasn't touching, he was just trying to strap her in, but the strap goes between the children's legs. So she was like, just don't touch it. And he was like, come over here and get her. He was just so embarrassed, So I'm like, okay.
Oh man.
But I mean,
better him than us, ain't
Yeah. I don't even know how I would react in
at
that
the same
situation.
time,
Walk out stuff.
they laugh at me, because they like, Mom, I mean, at that time, like I said, just the transition of being a mother, period, for me, because it meant that I had to educate individuals to be just as successful, as I am, but also be on their P's and Q's, but understand their values, and most importantly, having that stern relationship with God. And like the Bible says, you train them up in the way they should go, and when they depart, they'll return back. But I also wanted them to be just as well spiritually, because life is spiritual. If it's not practical, it's not spiritual. So that was another reason why I was like, you have to know, you need to know, so that when mom is not there, you know how to communicate. So for me, it was being able to pass on the wisdom and the knowledge to my children, and making sure that they are just as successful as I am. And I mean, it really is, it's difficult. I mean, especially just knowing how society is and the way things are going. I was just that stern mom, like, I need to know, Mom, I want to go here. Okay, well, guess what? I need phone numbers. I need to know the parent's name. I need to know what the address is. And I have dropped her off to an event that it was going on. And I just rolled down the street and I sat there and I watched. And when I observed something that I was like, whoa, where's the guardian? Who's the adult here? And I was like, no, we need to come out. Come on, it's time to go. You here a little too long. It's time to go, because I don't see no responsible adult. And just to this day, my daughter was like, Mom, you was just so, I need your phone number. I need their numbers. I need to know who they are. What do they do? What their parents like, and I would allow other parents, if I had a birthday party or something, well, you're more than welcome to come to the house. Just know that I'm a single parent. I do have a sibling that is a brother, but he may come and say, happy birthday, drop off a gift, but he won't be around, the children, just so that you would know. And because I gave the I would give other parents respect. I expected that. I was always that. I had to be the mom and the dad. And that was, I think, where my transition of being a parent kind of took control. I mean, what my concerns were, because now I am that single person and I have two other individuals that I have to be accountable for. Their blood is on my hand. I got to make sure. Now, nobody is perfect. And I always explain to them that nobody is perfect. We all make our mistakes, but you know what you're doing. There's no shame to the game, because you know what you do. You know what you did. You can tell me one thing, but I know that and God is going to reveal it. I don't care what you do. You can go over here. If he tell me in a dream, I'm going to confront you about it. I'm going to get it out one way or another. So if like I know, it's just best to just put it out there on the table, and we'll deal with it and go from there. I did what I could. And I think that was just, and I'm still like, like, oh my God, am I doing this? And they have been successful. I I can't knock it, but I'm still on them, even though they're out the house.
That's right.
I'm still on them because I have 2 females, so
That's
it's
right.
like, oh, it's I mean, it's difficult with boys and girls. It's just that the girls bring it home. So then that's when we go to the grandma and we got the mama, and it's a
Yeah,
cycle that I'm like, we're not trying to repeat,
that's right.
nobody, like I said, we all have our flaws, but the reality is look at what I've already been through. Look what, and it's a cycle. And I try to explain to them that understand with life is spiritual and it's practical. If it's not practical, it's not spiritual. And that's what I explain it to them. And I say, and one way to look at it is either I'm going to be made or I'm going to break this cycle. And what you do is you always look at your lineage of women. You look at the women that you come from. You got your grandmother, you have your mother, and then you have yourself. Are you following the path, or are you doing something different? The same with the gentleman that you choose to encounter with. You look at their lineage of men and ask yourself, is this what I want? Or, can I make this, or can I break this cycle? So, but in reference to the question, me being a mother, period, and have to be responsible for somebody else, it's like, oh my God, like, but for me, that was my transition of,
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Miss Melissa, what's the most difficult adversity you've dealt with as a mother?
I'm gonna say Miss Gamble done touched it all. Okay, I'm gonna feel like, because if the streets tell me before you tell me, oh, it's going to be some problems.
That's right.
That has always been my thing, but I'm gonna flip it up. I'm gonna switch it up for a little bit. So I think adversity, especially if you're a woman, let's say this, starting off, if you're in a relationship, whether it be a husband or just a boyfriend, and then you're no longer in that relationship, how it affects those kids, even how it affects us mentally as women, because we're so emotionally involved. We give our heart, we just give up so much of ourselves, and then our kids see us break down if there's a heartbreak, or if it's a toxic relationship, being and staying in situations that we shouldn't be involved in, but we just love them so much, or we don't want to be by ourselves. That's where I'm going to say adversity comes in at. Having the kids watch, again, being people come and go, you don't want them to see somebody who's not stable. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't pick the best fathers in the world, and I'm not going to throw no shade at my kid's father or anything like that, but sometimes it's like, again, like Miss Gamble was saying, depending on, it's called generational curses. How do you know that they can be the best fathers? What if they didn't have an example of a father? What do they have to go off of? So that therefore you're trying to be the mother and the father, showing their kids, how instilling the values again. So I think for adversity, it would be having relationships, and then how women can bounce back after coming out of a relationship, having a heart to forgive and stay strong and still be there, that all that you can be for your parent, your kids as a parent. So, and going back, when Ms. Gamble was saying, in schools, it is true, where the high school that I went to, they had a teen pregnancy class. So you see girls signing up for, as a regular schedule, like it's math and English, they had teen pregnancy, walking in the door pregnant, getting you through your 9 months. And even afterwards, introducing you to a daycare within the school, that is real. And you don't want that for your kids, The other aspect in regards to, growing up in the streets, of starting off in the North and then coming South, is a different transition too. It's an adjustment, because the South, it's calmer. They have mannerisms, everything is yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I had to, like, coming down here when we first moved here, I told myself, what you say? No, you're supposed to say yes, ma'am. Because they used to be like, yeah. Like, that's how they talk. And they're taught, because the streets have to teach them to be tough. You can get caught up in a game just like this, I mean, not to say it's not everywhere, but it's so much accessible, with drugs and, kids just trying to fit in because of the absentee parent. But yeah, I think for me, the biggest contribution or adversity for a single mom is relationships. You know, you got to be comfortable with being by yourself and knowing that you got to have put God first and everything. And I mean, I don't mean to say this, but this is all who I am. That's all that got me through. You got to put him first and everything, keep them covered. And I tell them all the time, listen, if you don't tell me, like I said, God sure enough will tell me, just like you said, Ms. Gamble, God sure enough will tell me I will have a dream or you're going to tell on yourself. And my mom always said, everything you did to me is going to come back to you. So if you know how you are, listen, I wrote the book. I told my kids I wrote the book. You can't, I'm a G in this thing. Listen, I know what you're doing before you even get ready to do it. It ain't, that's the newest under the sun. So, you know, just staying open, you know, to the kids and knowing, you know, don't try to be all like uptight, because how you didn't like growing up, that's the same stronghold, it falls on them. So having that willing ear to listen to them, because they're experiencing things differently, you know. And there was one more topic that was touched on, but it probably hit me a little bit later.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate
I
that,
can
Ms.
relate,
Melissa.
I can
Thank you.
relate to all of that. All of that makes sense. But I got one comment on that whole, like, whatever you did comes back to you, you know what I mean, and your children. I'm catching collateral damage right now. You know what I mean? So I'm trying, I don't know what my wife did is when she was growing up, whatnot, but my daughter, well, I'm catching collateral damage. I don't appreciate it. I ain't nothing to do with that.
Oh man.
Embrace it.
Look,
Hey.
I need y'all to give me some prayers, some lessons. You know what I mean? I'm dealing with a preteen here. Whoa.
Man,
Yeah.
I mean, nah.
That's the other part. So, you know, as far as another big adversity, some women, they be thinking, oh, I don't need no man in my life. Like, you know, as far as like they be trying to keep the fathers away from the kids. Oh, I could do this by myself. You can't teach no boy how to stand up and pee when he's going through emotional issues. Like my 16-year-old,
say it.
yes. He's like, why? You know, mom, as a Black boy, you know, growing up, this is what I don't have those answers because I'm not a young Black man growing up. But when you have good mentorship programs, good mentors out there that can teach, don't block them blessings for them. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's where we can take them to a certain, you know, level where we're supposed to love them, nurture them, give them those seeds, and then let a real man come and water it. So that was the last part I wanted to
I'm at
say.
the love on that one. Yeah.
Oh man, I appreciate.
Listen, I be wanting to go up top all the time, and I know that it ain't real. Listen, it ain't gonna hurt you as much as a man. That's where the moms be getting the brooms and the sticks and the bats.
Hey, man, I tell you what,
I'll beat you
I know
down.
those kids over there at Miss
right.
Murphy house going through it, boy. She on their heads.
Hey, well, you know, Michael, he's one of ours, Avin.
Uh-huh.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Miss
Oh, yeah.
Melissa's
That's
son.
so Michael.
Yeah, that's one of ours.
Okay, yeah, Michael is. I met him at the
Cookout.
at the cookout. So I actually sat down with that young man and told him about my son, who you know, what I mean, is at the point in his life where he needs somebody like Michael, who's got it figured out for the most part on what kind of a man he wants to be. You know what I mean? And because I learned a lesson that even me
Don't
growing
you say
up, I
that
know
about
y'all
Michael.
did too. What's that?
I'm talking to Miss Melissa.
Yeah.
She doing that rock and nod.
Yeah. You know, like y'all don't know what's going on in the
about
house though.
I know.
Look, my baby now.
I learned that about her, but she rock and nod. Don't you say that about Michael.
Yeah.
That's my baby now.
But I tell you, it's like I can tell my son everything. I can tell him all the right answers. But coming from me, it's just dad talking, you know what I mean, running his mouth. Somebody from the outside says exactly what I say, and it's like a light bulb goes off, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why humans work that way, but it does. And that's exactly why mentorship is great. And whether it comes from a peer or somebody older, you know what I mean, it's still very valuable. So I gave Michael my son's contact information and said, because he's going to White Oak, he's starting his freshman year. I said, hey, you know what I mean, pour into him what has been poured into you by Mario, you know what I mean? And what you're getting from that, pay it forward. Just hit somebody else with it, because you have no idea what impact it's going to have. So, I mean, Thank you for
I've
allowing him to be
always
part of the
told,
program.
no problem. I've always told him, I said, everything that you go through is never for you. It's always for somebody else. So it's about how you pass this test. It matters because you want to be able to help somebody cross over. So even dealing with the matters of the heart, that's my biggest thing. I dealt with that when I was growing up. And so now I know how to pass that down to my kids because I know my kids that's my kids. They're going through the same thing. So you always have to forgive. You know, you got to learn to love people where they are, but still forgive. You don't have a hardened heart because when you have a hardened heart, you block your blessings. You know, when he looks at it like that, he's like, you know what? And here he comes quoting some scripture to me. I'm like, okay, man. So yeah, and then like I said, with having good mentorship, because he was like, you know what, Mr. Mario told me to write a letter. Mr. Mario told me. I told you the same thing. I said,
See?
Like,
but it came from somebody else. It came from somebody else. So they received it.
Yeah. Because you sound like this, nagging.
Yeah.
Like,
you just being a parent. You being a
Yes.
parent and you're an authority figure, but when someone who's not an authority figure tells them something, they kind of like, oh, this person's looking out for me. You know, it's coming from outside. Still blows my mind, but you know. But like, I'm gonna steer you wrong, but that person is going to give you the right answer. It's the same one I gave you, but like, I'm gonna steer you wrong.
So, ladies, we got one question left. What values, lessons, and experiences would you like other mothers who are going through what you have to know? What values, lessons, and experiences would you like other mothers who are going through what would you like for them to know? Miss Felicia Walton.
And you'll get through it. And if you don't have a relationship with God, that's the main component. If you don't have a relationship with God, it's not too late. Just start and get one. And if you have one, just build upon it. And whatever you're going through, you know, everything is for a time and a season. And you will get through it. Just hang on.
Man.
Ms. Gamble.
I agree with Sister Felicia. Did I say that correct?
You did.
Okay, I do, and that is so true. It's all about having that relationship with God, because if not, I mean, it can be. I mean, that's a mental thing right there. Just being a parent, because there's so much that, I mean, we are everything, as you all have stated. The mother is. If mama not happy, nobody happy. If you know that woman don't have what she need right now, I gotta take care of this. I mean, we do everything. You know, we rob Peter to pay Paul. We got to cook. We got to do the homework. I mean, we're everything. But with that being said, the main thing is knowing that you're nothing without God, and you can't make it without God. And just always put your trust in God, and also know that communication is important. As God expects for us to communicate with him, it's vital that we communicate and build that bond and rapport with our children, because it makes a difference. And, you know, them being at some point, yes, like you all stated, that, you know, the mom can say something, but it takes somebody else to repeat the same thing, and the light bulb come on. But the thing is that communication plays a major role. You know, it's just like having God in your life. God wants us to communicate with him, to share everything that we're dealing with, you know, the hurt, the struggle. He already knows, but he loves for us to sit and have that communication with him so that he can make it easier on us and remind us that, you know, that the peace will be there. We just have to seek him first. But always put God first in everything. I mean, that's the only thing I can honestly tell you, because I'm like, I don't understand God. You need to show me. But at the same time, I have to learn how to trust you. And I have to be able to communicate with you in order to learn how to trust you and know how you move, so that when I'm talking to my children, they know, oh, okay, I know how my mom moved. I want to go here. I know that I got to get the address, I got to get a phone number, I got to do this before I can get what I want. So again, it goes back to having that bond of communicating and putting God first, and loving yourself in spite of what you're going through. Know that you are valuable, in spite of what it looks like, in spite of what the children are doing, how they acting. Continue to love them, continue to be there, and just be yourself and love yourself. And that's important too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Murphy,
Who we got? Yeah.
we're waiting for
Doug,
this.
I thought I was going last. You've been having me go last all this time.
We got to switch up.
Well, first, I would definitely say, as the other ladies, all the other queens have said, definitely having your firm foundation in the Lord, having a relationship with Him first. But the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God. Understanding that all things that you go through, whatever it is that you're going through, is called, it's purpose, it's a purpose behind it, and to even not only, this is a very basic thing that I taught my kids when they were 5 years old. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me the strength. Not some things, all. So that's why your mind has to be right. Whatsoever a man thinketh, so is he. Out of the abundance of your what? Your mouth, right? The heart, your mouth speaks it. So all of that is life. You have to write the vision and make it plain, because whatever you see, I need to see it come to fruition. The Bible even speaks about that. So you have to see it, you have to believe it, which is having faith and trust in God. And just know, once you put that first foot forward, then the other one will follow. Just continue to trust them. Just like when Peter was walking on the water. Just keep your eyes and focused on Jesus.
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying?
About
Don't
to
look
pass this
down.
plate
Don't
around.
look to the left. Don't look to the right. You better stop it now. But in all seriousness, that's what it is. And going back to what Ms. Gamble was saying, loving yourself. You got to look. Women nowadays, listen, it's not about showing your booty. It ain't about, I know people say dress modestly, which is great, but that shows your self-esteem. Love yourself first. Before you can pour into your children, you have to know who you are and whose you are, and love yourself first. Before I could go ahead and try and pour my love out to my kids, because I'll be like, sometimes you come home, you gotta have that woosah. So, take some moments to yourself, because you don't want to have to pour out and have an empty cup and have nobody else pouring back into you. So then getting connected with other people, other strong women, iron sharpens iron, that can encourage you, empower you. Get with some prayer circles, Eating the word of God is life, and it's the joy of the Lord that will give you the strength. That's all I got to say.
Amen.
Man, Miss Alicia Myles.
You're still muted.
You got to unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here I go.
I think she's still connected
Yeah,
to the
she's-
house
she's-
Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, man.
anything you want to talk about, with your mom or
man.
your wife?
I don't want to make y'all start crying in here. There we go. We got you back.
You got him back?
Yeah.
I was really talking too. That's some good stuff. I was saying that amongst everything, and including with everything the lady said, peace. No matter what situation, no matter how the situation, one of the ladies touched on it earlier, you keep the men in the child's life. You keep the fathers in the child's life. Adult situations are just that. They're adult situations. They have nothing to do with children. And I believe that no, me and the dad didn't make it as lovers, but as co-parents, we are doing an awesome job together. Even though he's in a different state and I'm in this state, and I feel like sometimes I'm doing it all, but I was meant to do it all. I was meant to be here with my son and make sure he has everything he needs. We've adopted family down here. We don't have much in the area I live in, and Mark will know, I'm not, heavily involved in my biological family, but the family that I've embraced and the family that I've brought into my child's life, I can't even tell you that sometimes I sit there and look at my neighbors, strong men that, you know, talk to my son, pull him aside, even when I'm not around, and just give him that guidance. I totally, truly appreciate it all. I keep him involved in sports. Mentorship is a big thing too. And these coaches that are in his life, they coach him. They get him ready for the world. That things that I can't necessarily give him on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah, with everything the lady said, including that, I just don't let anything interrupt my peace. No matter what it is, no matter who it is, no matter how much I love them, I miss them, or whatever, you cannot and I will not allow anything to interrupt that peace.
Totally agree. There's one thing though, you said, you know, I mean, that adult situations are adult situations. I 100% agree with that. But I will say this: if that man ain't living a right life, and he's not going to pour any value into your child, you let him stay over there. You know what I mean? You let him stay until he gets himself right. You know what I mean? And starts walking a path where he can pour into your child, and not start pushing the same bad habits that he executed. Hey, don't bring that in here. But definitely, if he's wanting to be involved and wanting to pour into the child and enrich the child, absolutely let him do it, because it makes a difference. Like I said, Mario asked me a little bit earlier about my mom. You know, sometimes it's difficult to talk about, but so my mom was a very young mom. She had me on her 19th birthday, so we had the same birthday. But she had my older brother when she was 16. And by the time she was 26 years old, she had 5 kids. So she was a 26-year-old with 5 kids. My mom and dad both we lived in the same house. I was actually the ring bearer in my parents' wedding when they got married. Yeah. So yeah, they got married well after I was born. But, you know, things happened along the way, and then it became a single parent household. You know, mom, high school diploma, going to community college, and working at the same time, full-time job, trying to provide for 5 kids, was extremely difficult growing up. I mean, we went without a lot. And if it wasn't for God's grace and 2 really powerful grandparents, my great-grandmother and my mom's mother, my grandmother, I don't think we would have been the family that we wouldn't be here where we're at right now. You know, my great grandmother would literally make the trip from where she lived at. We lived in the city. She would make the trip about an hour and a half and almost 2-hour drive. And they would come down almost every weekend, and they would bring food, and she would cook in the house and cook for us while my mom was at work. You know what I mean? She would watch over us until mom got off work, and then mom came home. You know what I mean? I had to grow up and be an adult much sooner than I was supposed to be, because I had to step up and fill in those roles of taking care of my younger siblings, doing homework, getting them bathed and ready for bed. You know what I mean? Those things that normally an adult is supposed to do, you know, I'm doing that as an 8 and 9-year-old, you know. So, you know, and the courage and the strength and the will that my mom had to do all of that by herself, you know what I mean? And, you know, not have to depend on, you know, no man, because she was determined that she wasn't going to fail at being a mother. And, you know what I mean? Looking back at her resilience now and thinking if an average 19 or 25-year-old, that 19 to 25-year-old woman right now could do what she did with 5 kids right now in today's climate, in today's world, I don't know, you know what I mean, how that would look, but I can tell you, I think it would be much worse than what we ended up going through right now with how the world is right now. You know what I mean? There's so much more out there, you know what I mean, that can seep into your family than there was back when we were growing up. I think we had the golden generation. You know, our grandparents are from the 50s, 40s and 50s that, you know what I mean, had those values. They were the glue that held the family together. They didn't allow no fighting. within the family. You couldn't talk about each other. They didn't allow no silliness, no drama in the house. You couldn't bring none of that around them because they would give you, the riot act right then and there. And they push that now to their children and to their children. So, listening to all y'all stories and what y'all have gone through and what y'all done for your children and just being those pillars, it always makes me really appreciate my mom. And, me and my mom are like best friends, we share the same birthday, so we party together every year, but it is that relationship and what she went through and me acknowledging being that child that says, she had the world on her shoulders and, we all turned out great. I got both my sisters are entrepreneurs. They have their own businesses and they're both single mothers themselves. They both have 3 children apiece, but they pulled themselves up. They made some, like you said before, remember that sometimes you don't pick the right man, and things could, go sideways, but they're both entrepreneurs, have their own businesses, they're thriving, they're doing great. My younger brother, he's doing great. I joined the military, did 20 plus years, retired, and, we just been blessed. No matter what we've been through, we stayed together as a family, we stayed tight, we kept God at the forefront of our family. And no matter what we went through as a family, we made it through it. And, he put a lot of iron will and determination into my mom. And, I thank him for that because I know I wouldn't be here without her.
I
Miss
thank you.
Melissa, go ahead. Shunnika, you already started? Or?
No,
Miss
I was
Melissa?
gonna say, I thank you for sharing that, Mr. Hilton. Just listening to your story, it reminds me of Tyler Perry. I don't remember the episode. I think it was Tyler Medea Gets a Job, where the young man didn't want to deal with his dad at the time. But long story short, the moral of the story was that taught you how to be the man that he didn't teach you, the struggle that you had to go through, as you stated, that you had to step up. And that's the lesson, that's a journey and education lesson that you can share with, I take it that you have a son now, and pass it on to him. Yeah, and you can pass it on to him. And I'm sure that has taught you your bond with your mother to love more on your wife and to be the better man that wasn't there for her, and you can pass that on. So I commend you for sharing that, but I also appreciate that the fact that you value that experience, even though it wasn't a great experience, but you valued it and you took lessons from that to know how to be the man that you should be. So that I just want to thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Miss Melissa. You had some?
A wife.
I know, right? Hey.
Oh, I'm hurt. Yeah. We gotta hang out sometime, Melissa. You bagged me up. Yeah. We would just
Hey.
Mr. Hinton, I have a question.
Absolutely. What you got?
Do you feel that as a young man growing up in the household of a strong mother and all the values that she instilled, did you find that you have found a wife that has a lot of similarities to how your mother is? Because I'm just hoping and praying that my boys will one day grow up to be good men and find a good, strong.
So you know the saying that daughters marry their fathers and sons marry their mothers. You know what I mean? The ideal woman that you've had in your whole life that's been, is showing you what a woman is your mother. So that is your cookie cutter, that's your template. You know what I mean? So not in a weird way, but that's your template. Like, she's strong, she's opinionated, she's independent, she's nurturing, she's submissive, like all of those things that you think like, okay, this is what a good woman is. She takes care of the house. I'm going to look for that because I seen what she did for us. And I want that for my children. When we have children, I want the same kind of relationship my children have with their mother and the same kind of experience. So absolutely, you look for that in when you're looking for a woman. And truth be told, God's going to send you that anyway. You know what I mean? He's going to put that in your path. You know what I mean? And that's you just got to be ready to receive it, and don't let your opportunity miss you. You know what I mean? So, but that's a definitely true statement. You see those same qualities that you see in your strong women, whether it's your mother or your grandmother, the template that you got that you seen is like that is it right there. And most 9 times out of 10 it's your mother, because that's who you spent all your time with growing up, and you learned from that and you saw it. And you're like, yeah, she took great care of us as a kid. She did all this. That's the kind of mother I want for my children. And
well, in case they ain't listening to God, because I'm going to hear God. So in case they not listening, I'm gonna be like, not that one.
Hey, absolutely. You should do that, because you have a better lens on it, and you can not saying that women are more judgmental than men, but y'all know exactly what characteristics are in a good woman. You know what I mean? And you know how you were growing up, you know how you thought, and just like you said, I can't speak from a woman's perspective because I'm not one, but you know exactly what is going on there, and you can point out those things like I know exactly what that is. Moving on. You know what I mean? That's not what it is right there. You go find you a new one, because I can tell you where that's going to end. And
that's right.
And you're supposed to do that. You know what I mean? That's still part of being that parent and protecting and shielding them, because obviously you want to let them learn lessons and grow up and experience things. But if you can save them from making life-altering decisions, absolutely save them from making life-altering decisions. You know what I mean? You're still gonna have some stubborn ones that still gonna want to do what they want to do, but they can't say that mom didn't tell me right.
That's right. You know,
I'm gonna say this really quick, and I'm gonna let you move on. So my son went through a situation where I think she was a very good girl. She had a job. She was very respectful. She wasn't fast or anything, and he done messed it up.
What?
What's wrong with you?
You know what? That's part of growing up. You learn.
No, I said, oh my gosh. I mean, I know I always tell my kids, I said, they're just friends. Don't be trying to take nobody serious. But, I actually met her moms coming from a single, mom household or whatever as well. But she was like, yeah, Miss Melissa, he lied about his age. I said, what you doing? I felt like how Martin felt like with Tommy and Cole, like, you don't do that, man. Like, what in the world?
Okay.
And then she, so that one I will never forget. I'm like, you done messed up. I stay in contact with her just in case it might be.
Hey,
okay. Hey, hold on a second. Hey. So, we've had a great time. I mean, I hate to cut it short. I want to thank Miss Felicia Walton for being on here, and everything that you do as a woman, as a mother. I mean, when you talk about all the ones that are on your attendance roll at, at Onslow County Learning Center, I know all those your kids. Because whether she has 30 or 100, she can tell you about each and every one. So this is where we've been at. We've been their mentoring since 2011. So I've seen her in action, and she loved each and every child, that student that comes through there, regardless of ethnicity, background, income, their social income status. None of that matters. She loved on them babies. So Ms. Walton, we want to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And to the other queens on the panel, I have really enjoyed and been inspired, encouraged by their stories. And it's good to know that we're out there and we're all fighting the same fight in our own part of the world. So I really want to thank you, Mr. Harris, for inviting me and for even creating this cast pod. So thank you very much. And it was a pleasure being a part of this team.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Walton.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Amazing group of women here, amazing stories and experiences. And I definitely think that anyone watching this, especially if they're going through what you've been through, or have learned, they can really learn something from this. And that I think the most important thing, obviously, is the relationship with God. But the second thing is loving yourself, like you said, Ms. Gamble, is that self-love, because there's so many women who are going through the single mother life, and you know what I mean, they feel like they did something wrong, and they start sowing the self-doubt, and then they get down on themselves, and then they go internal, and then they don't pour into their kids properly because they are pulling from nothing. They have an empty cup. So you know, they need to definitely pour into themselves, get their self-reliance and self-esteem up, and know that they are loved, and know that they are very powerful. And like I said, the neck that turns the head. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, because I've seen it time and time again, and you know, some powerful words that y'all shared, and I definitely think that it's gonna help out some people. You never know, you know what I mean? Like I said, paying it forward, telling someone your story can sometimes change someone's life. So you know, I mean, thank y'all for sharing that. You know, it takes a lot of courage to get out here and talk about your personal life. You know what I mean?
That's
So
right.
thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, Miss Shunnika Gamble, Miss Melissa Murphy, Miss Alicia Myles, and I will be remiss, and not just remiss, I'll be in trouble. If I didn't, I mean, my grandmothers, Miss Annie Ruth Miles, Miss Rosalie Harris, and of course my mother, Miss Nora Harris, and this 5 foot tall, light skinned, heavyweight that I've been married to for over 26 years, Miss Patricia Harris. Man, yeah, she's like my mother, but I don't know. She might be more like grandma, you know, Annie Ruth Miles. My wife has been, she is a wonderful woman. I contribute my maturity first to God, but second to my wife when it comes to being a man, a husband, and a father. And anything else, labels that God has identified, or purposes or gifts and talents. My wife has helped me mature so much. We don't even have time to talk about it.
Yeah, I had to second that, man. I had to second that.
So there was no way I was going to end this without saying anything about my wife. I mean, we've been through it, and y'all talk, you know, there's a stranger in my house. Somebody sung that song, right? So how about if I've been the stranger, right? Avin, you were saying, well, you know, until he does A, B, C, D, guess what? I didn't want to do A through Z. I was that guy. I'm not boasting, but if we adults in adult situations, Miss Melissa, we're gonna talk, we're gonna be truthful. I'm telling the truth. But praise be to God that it's no more.
There you go.
And by the grace of God, I am doing what God has purposed me to do. And we will continue to do that. This has been Building Minds, Builds Community Podcast. Building Minds, Build Community Podcast is a community podcast. We talk about every issue in our homes, in our communities, in the political arena. We go into everything, but we make sure that we are educated in whatever subject we're going to talk about. Once again, ladies, thank you so much. And I got my Superman, Avin Hinton. Thank y'all so much, and have a great
Thank y'all,
day.
ladies. Have a great night. God bless.
God bless. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you
you.
too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.